Hey guys, so today I have an exciting video for you. So about a month ago, I posted a video sharing with you guys my current thoughts on all of the products that I did individual reviews on in 2015. I'll link it up here in case you didn't check out that video. And in the comment section, I was going back and forth with one of my subscribers, and she was wanting to know my thoughts on foundations and powders that I tried throughout the year. And I told her that I tend to do first impressions on those type of products instead of reviews. And she said that she prefers reviews over first impressions because once you've been able to try out the product a couple times, you have more thoughts on it than just initial impression, which I totally understand. I like to do both type of videos, but I definitely do prefer reviews when I'm thinking about whether or not I should purchase a product. So I wanted to thank JCCMZ for her comment because that is what inspired me to do this video. I'm going to share with you guys my current thoughts on all of the products that I did first impression videos on in 2015. So thank you so much for your comment because like I said, this video wouldn't have happened otherwise, and I'm very excited about this video. So I tend to do review videos on lip products, eyeshadows, and cheek products, and I do first impressions on foundations and brow products. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's just what I really love to do. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 6 foundations and 6 brow products. Please make sure you check the description box because I'll be listing all of the items that I'm talking about, and I will also link the first impressions so you guys can see the demo of me actually applying the product to my face. So let's get started with foundations. The first foundation that I had tried out in the year was the Becca Evermatte Shine Proof Foundation. I no longer have that one. I did return it. So to give you the pros versus the cons, so the pros of the foundation was the shade match. It was very fair with a yellow undertone. It is one of the best shade matches I have ever found. I also love that it did dry down to a satin matte finish. I find that every single foundation that I try, no matter how long I leave it on my skin, seems to stay like a natural finish. It's still a little bit tacky, so I do need to set it. That is the only foundation I've ever tried that did dry down matte, which I was really impressed by. The foundation was very blendable. I didn't have any issues applying it to my skin. Now for the cons. First off, that would definitely be the coverage. It was light buildable to medium, which I just do not get down with. I'm a medium buildable to full coverage type of person, and especially for something that costs so much, I want coverage. So speaking of cost, it was a very expensive foundation for what it was, and also for it being a mattifying foundation, I felt like it didn't keep me matte longer than any regular foundation did. So my overall thoughts on that is that it wasn't worth the money. That is why I returned it. The color was great, but that's basically it. I didn't love the coverage, and I didn't love that it didn't keep my skin very matte, and those are the things that are the most important to me in a foundation. So I would definitely pass on that one if you are as oily as I am and if you like fuller coverage. My next foundation is a Kat Von D Lock-It Tattoo foundation in the shade Light 45. So starting with the pros of this product would be the coverage. This is super duper full coverage with one layer, which I really love. Now, this does not feel heavy on my skin, but that's because the very first foundation I ever tried was full coverage. So I've always been used to a little bit of a heavier feel, so I don't even notice it anymore. But if you're used to a really lightweight texture and feel on the skin, this foundation might feel heavy to you. Another pro of this product would be the shade selection. There are so many different shades to choose from, which is fantastic. I also feel like this holds up against my oil pretty well. It isn't invincible. I definitely do still need to touch up throughout the day, but it doesn't break up. I just have some oil peeking through, so I definitely think that this does a pretty good job mattifying my skin. The cons for this product would be the price. It is a high-end expensive foundation, but because it is so thick, I feel like this lasts me for a really long time, so I won't need to purchase it every couple months. My other con for this product is that even though there is a wide shade selection, there isn't a shade that is exactly my perfect match. This is a little bit too dark, so I just mix it with a lighter foundation and that works out perfectly. My other con for this foundation is that it does emphasize pores. It does settle into them, so definitely make sure that you wear a pore filling primer underneath of this foundation and you shouldn't have any trouble. beautiful. So my overall thoughts on this foundation is that it is one of my holy grail favorite foundations. The coverage is so impressive. I will definitely be repurchasing this when I use it all up. My next foundation is the L'Oreal True Match. I have the shade W1 Porcelain. This was featured in my top 15 disappointing products of 2015. Link that video up here in case you haven't seen that one. And the pros of this foundation would be the shade selection. There are a ton of different shades to choose from in warm, cool, and neutral undertones, but that's basically as far as it goes for the pros. As far as the cons, first off, the coverage. This is a light coverage. It was not buildable. I even put 2 layers on my cheeks. My redness was still showing through. I was not going to apply a 3rd layer because that's just too much makeup. So the coverage is definitely not there for me. Also, if you have really oily skin, I would not recommend this. I had to touch up so much more throughout the day, and I just don't have time to touch up that much. And if I went too long without touching up, then my face just looked absolutely terrible. And the biggest con of this foundation is that it made my skin look awful. Now, I do have acne, but other than that, I don't have texture, especially not on my cheeks. This foundation made my cheeks like a big old bumpy road. It was ridiculous. I have never tried a foundation that made my skin look worse than it does without makeup. I was just blown away by how awful it made my skin look. This is a foundation that I don't really recommend to anyone personally because I had such a bad experience with it. Definitely not if you have oily skin or if you like full coverage, but a lot of people do really like this foundation, but it did not work for me whatsoever. The next foundation is the one I'm wearing today. This is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless Foundation in the shade 110 Porcelain. So the pros for this foundation is that it is very inexpensive, and it also has a pretty decent shade selection, which is fantastic. I do believe I have the lightest shade. It is a smidgen too light for me, but I definitely can work with it. Just apply a powder that's a little bit darker. That is what I did today, and I think the color worked out pretty well. So I've been using this foundation for the past 2 weeks trying to figure out how do I really feel about this foundation. I really had conflicting thoughts on it. So in my experience, this does not apply well with a brush. It looked really streaky and it didn't give me coverage, which usually when I apply foundation with a brush, I get more coverage, but not with this foundation and not with my skin. So what I use to apply this is the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge. I find that sponge and this foundation work the best together on my particular skin. So that is the application method that works best for me. This is definitely a light, buildable to medium coverage. So this is what I'm wearing today. I'm probably going to keep wearing this foundation on my filming days when I'm not doing anything else, so I'm not wasting my more high-end expensive foundation. So I am going to keep using this, but I'm not going to be repurchasing this. I don't understand what the hype is on this foundation. It isn't as terrible as the L'Oreal. I think it's an okay foundation, but it does not give me a very good coverage. I don't feel like it holds up against my oil particularly well. It does an okay job, but nothing fantastic for the claims of being a mattifying foundation. So I don't get the hype of this. I do think it's an okay foundation. It is not my favorite drugstore foundation, and I'm not going to be repurchasing this, but I will use it up for days like this when I'm just filming and not doing anything else. My next foundation was also featured in my top 15 disappointing products of 2015. This is the Catrice All Matte Plus Shine Proof Foundation. Catrice is a European brand that now sells some of their products at Ulta, which I was super excited about. I did an entire review video on all 5 of the Catrice products that I tried. I'll have it linked up here in case you want to hear more of my thoughts on that brand. So the pros of this foundation is that it is blendable and it does last pretty well throughout the day. The cons of this foundation would be the shade selection. I think it only comes in 5 colors, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I don't know how you think people are supposed to be able to find their perfect match when you only have 5 shades available. This foundation was also light, buildable to medium coverage, which, like I said, I don't get down with. That just is not enough coverage for me. And as far as the oil control claim goes, I was not impressed. I had to touch up just as many times throughout the day as I do when I wear a non-mattifying foundation. So that was a huge bummer. But the biggest disappointment of all is that this oxidized on my skin. This color was already a bit too dark for me and a bit too peachy, but I was able to work with it. But as I wore throughout the day, it got darker and darker, which is a huge disappointment. The only other foundation that's ever done that to me is the CoverGirl Outlast Stay Fabulous 3-in-1 foundation, which is such a bummer because I think I would really love that formula, but I just can't get down with a foundation that oxidizes on me. The color is already too dark, so I don't want my face makeup to look terrible halfway throughout the day because it looks like I don't know how to color match myself. So my overall thoughts on this foundation is that it is a huge miss for me. It did not live up to any of the claims except that it did last all day on me, but if I don't like the way that it looks, I don't really care if it lasts all day. So really disappointed in this foundation. Would not recommend it or repurchase it. And my last foundation is the Hard Candy Glamoflague in the shade Porcelain. This is one of the products I featured in my Best of Beauty 2015, which I'll link up here in case you didn't check that out. So the pros for this foundation. This gives medium buildable to full coverage, and this has a really nice consistency. It feels so velvety on the skin, and it is the perfect texture between thin and thick. So it isn't ruddy, but it isn't so thick that you can't blend it out. I really love the consistency of this foundation. I also feel like this does a pretty good job of controlling my oil. So those are the things that I care about the most, would be coverage and how well it mattifies my skin, and this is definitely good at both things. The only con I really have for this foundation is the shade selection. So the darkest shade they have is a tan shade that probably really just works for tan skin. Anyone that has really deep skin, you're not going to be able to find a shade for you. Also, an important thing to know with this foundation is that it shows up lighter on your skin than it looks in the bottle, because this looks like a great shade match for me. But when I apply this full on my face, it looks straight up white. It is the weirdest thing ever. I have never really tried a foundation that shows up lighter on my skin, especially because this is a clear bottle. So the color that you see is the actual color of the foundation. So I'm not quite sure why it does that, but I have heard the same thing from other people. So definitely go a shade darker than you think that you would be. Hopefully it will give you the right shade. So I actually have repurchased it this year. I used up an entire bottle of this, and this is what I use as a mixing foundation because the Porcelain shade is very fair, and even though it is almost white, it does have a little bit of a yellow undertone, which is perfect for my skin. So I use this to mix with any foundations that are too dark or aren't yellow enough for me, and it is perfect for that. I feel like this consistency works well to mix with a ton of different foundations. So this is definitely one of the best foundations I've ever tried. Highly recommend it for basically all skin types. I don't think it overly mattify, so if you're dry, I don't think it's going to dry you out, but let me know your thoughts if you've tried it and you're dry. So definitely love this one. So now moving on to the brow products. The first one I have is the Sleek Eyebrow Stylist Pencil. I have the shade medium, which is too dark for me. I definitely would have preferred the light shade. It probably would have worked better with my blonde brows. And this is what the pencil looks like. It actually looks very similar to the brand new Anastasia Brow Definer Pencil. I think that's what it's called, but it looks just like this. And I don't like how large this is, even though it is pretty thin. I need a lot of precision with my brows. I like the Brow Wiz very fine tip, so I can really draw on my brows just how I like them to be. I feel like when I use a tip like this, I draw on my brows a little bit too intense and a little too thick, but that definitely can be user error, but I just don't prefer this type of tip over the micro brow. This is a very creamy pencil. It does glide onto brow hair on a skin really well, which I do love, but it is a little too creamy, so I didn't really have too much problem with this lasting throughout the day. But if you are someone that is going to be like sweating a lot throughout the day, or you're going to be rubbing your face, some of your brow might come off, especially on the areas where you're drawing onto skin. And because this isn't the correct shade match for me, I don't really reach for this. So I am not going to be finishing it up. I'm not going to be repurchasing it in my shade because, like I said, I prefer a finer tip. My next brow product is the e.l.f. Instant Lift Brow Pencil, which comes in 3 colors, and I have the lightest shade Taupe. It also has a spoolie on the other side, which is really nice. The sleek does too, I forgot to mention. So this is what the e.l.f. brow pencil looks like. It does have a rounded tip, unlike the sleek, but it is just as thick as the sleek. So I'm not able to be as precise as I would like to, but it isn't too overwhelmingly large. I can definitely still use it to apply product to my brows. And this color does have a great cool undertone, but it is a little intense. So I do need to be careful when applying it that I don't apply too much pressure or my eyebrows are going to be really, really pigmented and dark. This is a very, very creamy product, so it does glide onto brow hair and onto skin really well. But this as well is another type of product that if you're drawing it onto skin, I would recommend setting it with a brow powder just so you can make sure that it doesn't wipe away. I definitely do enjoy this brow pencil, but it is not holy grail. I am not going to be repurchasing this one. My final brow pencil is the NYX Micro Brow. I have the shade Taupe. So on one end you have a very fine, precise point, and on the other end you have a spoolie. This brow pencil comes in a ton of shades, which is fantastic because not enough brow products come in a bunch of different shades. Both the sleek and the e.l.f. only come in 3 colors. This one comes in, I think, 6 to 8 different shades. I would not go off the shade name alone when you're picking out your color. I would definitely go into Ulta and swatch them because the shade names are not the best representation of the actual color. So definitely keep that in mind when you're picking out the shade, but Taupe works perfectly for me. It is a very cool tone color that works great with my blonde brows. And out of all 3 brow pencils, this is my favorite. This is my holy grail. It is the brow pencil I'm going to repurchase over and over and over again. In my opinion, this is a dupe for the Anastasia Brow Wiz. It has the same precise tip, which I love because I am able to draw on my brows exactly how I want. This does draw onto brow hair and onto skin very well, and I find that it does stick around for a long time. I love the consistency of this, and I love the tip. It is absolutely fantastic. Definitely my favorite brow pencil by far. My next brow product is the NYX Tinted Brow Mascara in the shade Blonde. This also comes in about 5 colors, I believe, and this color is fantastic. It is a great light shade with a cool undertone, fantastic for cool tone brows. I absolutely love this. So this is what the applicator looks like. It isn't as big as a mascara wand, but it isn't as small as the wand on the Benefit Gimme Brow. It is shorter, but it is still a little bit thick. I don't have any trouble using this, but if you have thinner brows than me, then you might just want to apply it a little bit more carefully. So the color of this product actually does show up on my brows, which is fantastic. I didn't think it was going to. And this does help hold my brows in place without making them crunchy. And this does last all day on me. I really was impressed with this product. And my favorite part about this brow gel is because the color is a little bit lighter for me and because it is pretty opaque, it really does stick onto every brow hair and it emphasizes my brow hairs, which I like because I do draw on my brows so precisely. It is very easy to look like I just painted them on, but when I apply this, you can actually see the brow hairs. Even though the shape is a little bit intense, it is looking a little bit more natural because you can see that the hairs are defined. This is definitely a holy grail brow product of mine. I love using it in combination with the NYX Micro Brow Pencil. So those are 2 brow products that I would say that everyone needs to try out. I am so impressed with this product. My last 2 brow products are pomades from Milani and e.l.f. So I have the Milani Stay Put Brow Color in the shade number 2 Natural Taupe, which is a really good shade for my hair color. And then I have the e.l.f. Lock On Liner and Brow Cream in the shade Taupe Blonde, which is a little bit warmer than the Milani, but very similar. So both of these products work exactly the same. They do draw onto brow hair and onto skin very well. They are very opaque. The Milani does come with a dual-ended brush, which is really nice, but the e.l.f. is a little bit cheaper. It's about half the price of the Milani, but I think both of these work the same. I am really impressed with both of these. I think they are a good dupe for the Anastasia Dip Brow Pomade if you don't want to put out the money for that product, or if you're kind of apprehensive about trying a brow pomade, definitely pick up one of these first. I think that they are fantastic. So after trying the Anastasia and the Milani and e.l.f. brow pomades, I have discovered that I am not a pomade person. I would much prefer to apply a pencil, powder, and brow gel. Even though that's more steps, it takes longer, I like the end result better than I do with pomades. Pomades, it is so easy to go way, way over the top, really intense, really, really quickly. So you definitely need to apply as little amount of product as possible and then add more as you need, because it's hard to come back from applying too much product. Also, I feel like it makes my brows look less natural. I feel like when I apply this to my skin, I can definitely tell what areas are my skin and what areas are my brow hairs. With my pencil powder brow gel method, I don't notice it as much as I do with the pomade. So that's something that I can get over that. It's not the biggest deal, but it is definitely a con for pomades in general. So I do want to try to use these products more because they are fantastic. I do own them, but I'm just not a pomade type person. So guys, those are my thoughts on all of the first impression products I tried out in 2015. I would love to know your thoughts if you tried out any of these products. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye guys.